Oh, Grandma's gonna really be preaching now on this one. I just want you to be able to see Jesus. He has just now gone through the temptation in the wilderness. But I want to recap where we've come, how far we've come so far, and this won't be too long. I wrote it down so I can get through it in a hurry. But Jesus became our second Adam who did not sin. Jesus became our lamb sacrifice that Adam had to give to show he wanted the sin bled out of his life and the lamb's righteousness to go back into him. And God covered them with his loving robe of hide of the lamb of forgiveness. Jesus became our Seth, who was righteous. He was raised up after Cain killed righteous Abel, but Seth carried on and raised his family in righteousness. Jesus became our Noah. He was righteous, and he became our door to the ark. Jesus became our Abraham. He became our ark, in fact. Jesus became our Noah, our door, our ark. Jesus became our Abraham, who loved God in a heathen world and whose body was brought back to life so that he could have little Isaac. Jesus was brought back to life. And brings us back to life. Jesus became our Isaac, who was born supernaturally out of the deadness of Sarah's womb, it says. Jesus was born supernaturally. Little Isaac carried the wood on his back up the hill like Jesus did when he was going to Golgotha. And Jesus and Isaac was obedient to his father all the way. And Jesus became our ram, our young ram, our lamb that was caught in the thicket by the thorns. And they sacrificed him instead so Isaac could go free. And remember, Jesus had the crown of thorns on his head as he was being taken for a sacrifice. Jesus became our Joseph in Egypt, who saved the nation in a famine and saved the family of his brother Judah, the seed of Christ. We're talking about the seed of Christ being in these people and how God is saving the seed of Christ, and he's given us all these pictures. And Jesus became our baby Moses, who was hidden from a wicked Pharaoh in Egypt. And just like Jesus was hidden in a manger, Moses was hidden in a basket in the hay and saved because put in Egypt to be saved from the wicked Pharaoh. And Moses is the one also who God told him how to set up the tabernacle. And Jesus became everything in that tabernacle. First of all, in the front, around the tabernacle, was the courtyard, and that was the laver where the priest would wash up. And then there was the altar of sacrifice where the lamb would be laid. And Jesus became our high priest to make intercession for us. So he became the high priest. He was washed, and we can be washed clean. Jesus became remember they brought him gold, frankincense, and myrrh when he was born? Well, there's a good picture too of what was in the courtyard or in the front room of the tabernacle. And in the front room there was also a lampstand with golden candlesticks. Jesus said, "I am the light of the world." There was the bread that was on the table, and 12 loaves of bread representing the 12 tribes of Israel, and Jesus came from that. And we are now called New Israel because we're eating the bread of life. And also in that front room was, the golden can and the laver. But also the priest would go in once a year and present the blood in the holiest of holies. And you know what was in the holiest of holies? The Ark of the Covenant. And in that Ark of the Covenant, which God set up very special, there was a golden pot of manna, and Jesus, and that fell from heaven, and it was preserved in there. And Jesus said, I am the bread from heaven. I am the manna from heaven. Jesus became that. Jesus became Aaron's rod that budded, that was also in the Ark of the Covenant. And he became the vine, and we are the branches. And Jesus also became the 10 Commandments. They were in the Ark of the Covenant. Jesus is the living word written on the fleshly tables of our heart. And Jesus is our new rest, our new Sabbath. He's the only name that is to be honored and worshiped. He's the only everything. I can't go through all the 10 Commandments right now, but Jesus not only kept them for us, he became them for us. So anyway, he was the pillar of fire by night. And he led the people through the wilderness of sin, it's called. The wilderness of sin. And he's leading us. He's the light of the world that was from the beginning when God said, let there be light. And it showed up in the burning bush. And now it shows up in the pillar of fire. And it shows up all through the Old Testament. When the priest brought the Ark of the Covenant into Solomon's temple, it was so brilliant. The priest couldn't even stand to minister. God had to cover it with a cloud. When Moses was up on the mountain, his face shone because he was looking, getting the 10 Commandments and looking at the brightness of God. And the people couldn't hardly stand to look at Moses. So Jesus is a picture of that. I mean, they're pictures of Jesus. And Jesus became, what was else in the wilderness? Well, anyway, Jesus became our Joshua. When, oh no, there was one other thing Jesus became. I forgot to write that down. The people were the Israelites were acting so nasty that God sent in a bunch of rattlesnakes to kill them. And they said, help us, Moses, help us. And God told Moses to fashion a snake, put it on a pole, fashion it out of brass, hang it on a pole and lift it up, and whoever would look at that snake would be healed from the snake bite. Well, Satan is called a snake and a serpent, and he has bitten us with sin. And that's why Jesus said, even as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must I be lifted up, that I can draw all men unto me for salvation. And sure enough, when the people looked at that serpent, they were healed. There's Jesus again. And Jesus, they were thirsty, and God told Moses to talk to the rock and it would split open and give them water. But no, Moses hit the rock, in the face of the rock, and that was like hitting Jesus. But that rock, it says in the scriptures, was Jesus Christ. Also, he's the manna from heaven, the bread from heaven. And Jesus became our Joshua, a mighty warrior who brought down amazing things, including the walls of Jericho, and protected that little seed. Yet remember, the seed started with Adam and then through Seth, and it's going on, and there's this battle that's going on. And so Joshua, he was even commanded the sun to stand still so he could finish the battle. And God heard him, and Jesus is called the Son, S-U-N, of righteousness, because Joshua was righteous. And also, Joshua was able to save Rahab the harlot. Rahab lived on the walls of Jericho, put down a golden scarlet cord so they could see her and save her, because she said she loved the Lord. She was different than the rest. And 2 spies went in to save her, and one of the spies was named Salmon. And Rahab and Salmon were saved, and they became the mother and father of Boaz in Bethlehem, who married Ruth, the Moabite woman who decided to follow the Lord. And Boaz was from the line of Judah, and they both loved the Lord because Rahab had given her life to the Lord too. And Boaz had a boy named Obed. Obed had a boy named Jesse who loved the Lord. Jesse had a boy named David who killed Goliath and became the king of Israel, second king of Israel. And David loved the Lord in a mighty way. He's a big picture of Jesus Christ. Oh, people, can't you see this? Can't you see this? Anyway, I ran out of paper. There's a lot of things I skipped, but everything in the Old Testament was Jesus in the sonograms of everything. It's that bottle going down the river, and Satan's trying to stop the bottle, and he can't. Until finally, for our last story, Jesus was led out into the wilderness. These two men, Jesus and Satan, and they meet each other eyeball to eyeball for the first time. After all of this since Genesis, now comes the big test. Satan tried to tempt Jesus to fall, just like Adam and Eve did, to the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life, and Jesus did not fall. Jesus is still going on because he's got a work to do. He's got to finish out his work and go to the cross and rise from the dead to save us. He's our second Adam. He's everything in the Old Testament. He's everything that the tabernacle was made out of. All the different embroideries and the posts that were so far apart. They all are symbols, and they're just negatives of the thing that is to come. Years ago, we used to, people used to take negatives in a dark room and start developing them, and a picture would come forth. Well, they don't do that anymore, but that's what we've got with the Old Testament, is the dark room. And finally, the picture of Jesus emerges. And it's just beautiful because God is saving the seed of Jesus Christ and showing us through all these pictures Jesus Christ. And now Jesus is going to be coming back again soon. So we must be ready. And I hope this builds up the foundation of your faith of who Jesus really is. I'm sorry I cry. I can't help it. He's so wondrous. The Bible is like no other book on planet Earth because God wrote it. It says God wrote it as the Holy Spirit moved these different men of God to write it. They lived generations apart and they're writing the same thing. That should tell you something right there. Oh, Grandma's on fire today. But please, guys, if you've followed this from story number 1 all the way through in order, you'll see, now that you read it again or read it in your Bible, you're going to see Jesus in all of them. He's there. I got to quit sometime. Oh, how I love you guys, and oh, how I wish you could see Jesus. It is important when the storms of life come along, and I'm not done with Jesus yet, but when the storms of life come along, Jesus told about the wise man and the foolish man. The wise man built his house on a rock. The foolish man built his house on the sand. And when the storms came and battered the house on the rock stood firm. The house on the sand fell flat. We used to sing a little song about that, and I'm not going to sing it. But build your faith in Jesus Christ through knowing these Bible stories. They're all pictures of Jesus and parts of the rock foundation of our faith. Now I'll shut up. Okay, we'll go on again with another one tomorrow. Bye-bye.